I was the first blind student to graduate from Yale University. And I did that in 1974. I graduated. And this was before there was an Americans with Disabilities Act saying that you must do this for people with disabilities. I had to argue my own case about what I was capable of doing and the fact that the university would not hurt itself by letting me in. I was the first blind student to graduate from USC Law School in 1977. I had to persuade the dean. The dean had questions. In fact, during the admissions process, the dean wanted to know, how can we be sure that you can do the work? And I said, sir, the only way you can be absolutely sure is to let me in. And he did. So that was my first successful argument. And when I applied for jobs, it didn't matter where I applied. I applied to the Attorney General's office, the District Attorney's office, the City Attorney's office, and they all said, you're blind, and we don't think you can do what we asked our first-year lawyers to do. Again, this was before 1990 and the Americans with Disabilities Act, so they weren't hesitant to say why they weren't taking me in. You're blind. But there was one person in the Department of Social Services, the chief judge was willing to take the chance, and he hired me. Now, he was willing to do it, but when my colleagues heard that they had just hired a blind guy, they went to the chief judge to lodge their protest. They said, the work has increased. We need someone who can help us carry the load, not someone whose load we're going to have to carry. And then after I was there for about a year, one of my colleagues says, but we're impressed because you're extraordinary. I told him, I said, no, I'm not extraordinary. I'm just ordinary. You just thought you got something extra because you expected less than ordinary from me. And that's what I find that happens when people look at me and look at the fact that I'm blind, they think, he can't. But I was able to achieve what I was able to achieve because of this. I saw myself as no different in capability than anyone else. I believed in the possibilities. I was able to see the possibilities. And I committed myself to excellence. See, it was very important for me to see myself no different. And even when people want to say, you're extraordinary, I said, no, I'm just ordinary. I'm no different. And that's the way I had to see it. So, and I had help from my mother. I was raised in a family of 12 children. And my mother did not treat me like I couldn't do. So I had chores just like everybody else. Everybody had their chores. I had my chores. And I didn't think anything unusual about that. I should have chores. I'm part of the family. I should have chores. When I was in high school, I had a chance to talk to parents who had become parents of blind children. And they were dealing with, what should I allow my child to do? And they asked questions as I spoke to them. I was in high school at the time. And I spoke to them, and they asked, should I teach my child to tie her shoe? When my son wants a glass of water, should I get up and get it for him, or should I make him get it himself? Well, you know what advice I gave them? Make them do it themselves. That's what I had to do. And there's no reason why you can't, just because you don't have the use of your eyes. So I saw myself as being able to do it, notwithstanding the fact that I could not use these eyes. I was still able to use my brain, to use my hands, to use my feet. And so I could see the possibilities. When others couldn't see the possibilities, I saw the possibilities. And what I've learned is if you can see the possibilities, then, and you are willing to say yes to the possibilities, then you'll find the way to make it happen. Now, I'm running for state senate not because I was sitting at my desk. First of all, it's important to understand that I'm retired. I retired at age, no matter what age I was. I retired in 2010. And I spent most of my time with my business as a professional speaker and volunteering at high schools, and primarily volunteering at Soar High School, sharing my knowledge about public speaking and later on about mock trial. And so I wasn't sitting at my desk thinking, what do I do next? Let's run for political office. In fact, I never would have considered it. Except that one of my students from Soar High School he came to the house to practice his speech, and he said, before I get to my speech, I want to talk to you about something. I said, yeah. He says, I think you should run for Congress. I said, I think you're crazy. This was a couple of years ago, and he proceeded, and I thought, it's just not, well, if you've had teenage children before, say, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. And they don't sound happy about it either. So I thought it was just an idea that some teenage kid had, you should run for Congress. And then he proceeded to demonstrate how sincere he was about the matter. He told me who ran in the last election, how much money they raised, how much money they spent, how many votes they got, what the demographics of the district were. And I said, oh, you're really serious? He said, yes, I'm serious. I said, but I still think you're crazy, and I'm not going to run. But once the idea was planted there, and he did one more move. I have a friend named Crazy Harvey who convinced me that I should go to Yale and convinced me that I should go to law school. And Noah happened to know about Crazy Harvey. That's all. He knew his name, Harvey Harrison. He knew what role he played in my life. And so the next time I saw Noah preparing for a speech, Noah said, I talked to Harvey. I said, Harvey who? He said, I talked to Harvey Harrison. I said, you talked to Harvey? How did you find? He said, I went online. I took all the information you gave me. I looked for Harvey Harrison, graduated from Yale, blah, blah, blah. And I called him, and I said, and why did you call Harvey? He said, well, I figured if he could persuade you to go to Yale and go to law school, he can persuade you to run for Congress. Well, neither of them were successful in persuading me to run for Congress, but they did plant the idea in my head about contributing my experience and my skills in our political process. And the reason that they were concerned, and the reason that Noah was concerned, and other students that I talked with at the high school was concerned, is that unlike some of us adults, they are not jaded about our democratic process. They still have hope in our democratic process, and they want to maintain that hope. So they asked me to contribute my skills and my knowledge to our legislative process. Now I'm going to tell you about, just the other day I talked to a guy, we're talking about adults now. I talked to a guy, and he says, I wish you much luck in your campaign, but I'm not going to contribute. He came straight out and said it, and that's good, because then I know where I am in the process, and I know to delete his name off my list, because, and I said, why not? He says, well, those the politicians, it's not going to, and he expressed his whole disappointment with the whole political process and how it's just a waste, and it would be a waste of his money to invest. That's how jaded some of us adults are. And I don't want to see that happen to the young children, the children that are here today. We've got youngsters here today. And so when I talk about a vision for California, I'm talking about a vision that goes out 20, 30, 40 years. And it is not likely that I'm going to be here 30, 40 years from now. Let's see, 67. No. So it's for them. It's for our young people that we have to ensure that this vision, the vision that Louis Armstrong sang when he talked about what a wonderful world, the vision that I see for California, we have to ensure that that vision materializes. And somebody has to lead it. Somebody has to be willing to do it. And you don't have to do it the same way it's been done. That is, I believe, the problem. If we keep doing things the way we've always done it, what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen? We're going to keep getting what we always get. And you know what we have? I'm just going to name some geography. Washington, D.C. We have a situation now where money dictates who's going to be the leader. We have a situation where people are more focused. In fact, I heard someone recently say our democratic process should be supported by our capitalistic system, not the other way around. But we have a situation in which our democratic process is supporting the capitalistic process. The capitalism is number one. Let's figure out how businesses can make more money. And they look at the economy today and they say the economy is going well. Look at the economy, it's great. Stock market's up. Yes, the economy is great, depending on what you're measuring. If you want to measure the stock market, yes, the economy is great. Talk to people on the street who are trying to pay their rent, their utilities, and have some food to eat without working 3 jobs to do it. The economy is not so great. So we have to look at whether or not our democracy is moving away from being of the people, by the people, for the people. My vision for California is, as I said, that we remain global leader. And I think we'll do that if we focus on 6 things. First is education. Education, for me, is number 1 because knowledge is power. And when we have that knowledge, when we ensure that every resident of California has the opportunity to the knowledge, then we can ensure that we're developing a population, a community that is prepared for tomorrow's technology, that's prepared for tomorrow's job, and is prepared to make informed decisions about its leadership. Education, number 1 for me. Number 2 is the environment. The education that we have is of no use whatsoever if the earth is destroyed. So we educate. If we don't know how to protect the earth, if we don't know how to preserve the earth or replenish its resources, then let's educate the youngsters who are coming behind us and let them do it, but not destroy it so they have nothing to work with. I am interested in California remaining the beautiful state that it is with its diversity in geography and in nature. Number 3 is the economy. We can be and continue to be global leader in business and business innovation. But that has to be balanced with the idea that we protect the environment and that we ensure that the people who work in the jobs that we create can maintain a meaningful living. And when I use the term meaningful living, specifically, I wrote a book on making the moment meaningful, and I talk about 4 pillars of meaningfulness. That is purpose, connection, growth, and self-definition. So in working every day, no matter what the job is, no matter what the technology is, no matter what the field is, the worker should feel that they have a meaningful life, that they are living a purpose, that they are connected beneficially with the people around them, that they have a chance to grow and define who they are. The 4th one is equality. We're not equal in the color of our skin. We're not the same in the shape of our bodies, the physical condition of our bodies, the capacity of our minds. No, we're not the same in those areas. But we can be equal in our opportunity to dream and to make those dreams come true. And that's the equality that I will work toward in terms of serving in the legislature. Number 4 is on efficiency. We're running out of time. We're running out of time. We're running out of resources, and the leaders that we elect, the people that we hire to work on behalf of the state, cannot waste time, waste resources, waste money. So we have to figure out an efficient way of taking care of the things that must have our priority. And then finally, number 6 is excellence, to excel. I was able to do what I did because I committed myself to excellence. I had Maud Riley was one of my neighbors when I was a teenager, and Maud Riley would give me jobs to do. And every time she gave me a job to do, she quoted a poem. Now, when I say Maud Riley gave me jobs to do, understand, most of the people, they said, he's blind, he can't. But Maud Riley was very different. Like, he's here, let's put him to work. And so Maud Riley, sometimes I would be washing dishes, drying dishes, clipping rose bushes, pulling weeds. One day I went to Maud's house and she was painting, and I could smell the paint when I walked up to the door. The door was wide open, and I said, "Oh, Maud, you're painting. I better come back later when you are not so busy." She said, No, come on in. I have a job for you too. And Maud showed me where the pan of paint was, and she put a paintbrush in my hand, actually a roller in my hand, and she said, I want you to paint the ceiling. So she showed me where the stepladder was, and I went up and I started stroking the ceiling with this paint, this roller. And I, being a mathematician, I was able to estimate the width of the roller and the strips, the paint that I was doing. And when I missed a spot, Maud would tell me where I missed a spot, and I'd have to go back and redo it. And Maud always quoted this poem whenever she gave me a job. She said, "Dana, if a job is once begun, leave it not until it's done. Be the task great or small, do it well or not at all." That was my commitment to excellence. That's what she said to me, and that's what I committed to. And I think we can commit those people who work for us in the government, those people, and you can ensure that those people who you elect to represent you, they do the same. Do it well or not at all. Commit themselves to excellence. And I say excellence is not perfection. Excellence is to get better. In my book, The Excellence Books, principle number 1 says to excel is to do better today than you did yesterday. And that's what I think we can do. We can do better today than we did yesterday. We can do better if we're willing to do something different. So my 6 E's of my platform for California, my vision for California: education, environment, economics, equality, efficiency, and excellence. I believe it can be done. I believe that we have to do it. And if we don't do it now, then it may be too late to do it later. I think we should do it for China, for Rocio, for Dwayne, for all of the young people. Who else is young here? Anybody want to claim to be young? Alan, we could do it for Alan, Pamela. We can do it. We can achieve this better vision for California. But we have to do it by doing something different. What am I doing differently? I'm not accepting money from lobbyists, corporations who have in mind what they want me to do. I'm accepting money from the people out here, the people, and because I'm obligated, I'm going to do what you want me to do, even if there's no money involved. And so if I don't have to take money from these outside folk, then I can just ignore them when they want my ear. I've got the ear of the people. I am Lilia Galindo is out here. Lilia, wave your hand. Lilia Galindo is out here, and she likes to say, he's not doing it because he needs to achieve something else. He's already achieved a lot. He doesn't need to achieve anything else. I don't need to achieve anything else. But, the other part of excellence is about looking within yourself and seeing what talents and abilities you have and using those talents and abilities to help someone else. So I agree with that initial idea that Noah had and that people are encouraging, and that is this. Use your talent and your experience, Dana. So what do I bring? I bring to you the ability to listen. I will listen to you as your representative. And you tell me what it is that you'd like to see for the district that you live in and the California that you love. I bring to you the ability to speak. I've won the World Championship of Public Speaking with Toastmasters International. I've had a chance to speak around the globe in 9 different countries, given over 1,000 presentations. I bring with you the ability to write. I've written 4 books. I bring to you the ability to advocate. I served as a lawyer. I convinced universities to accept me when the rules and their practices would not allow a blind person to come to their university. I bring to you the ability to make decisions. I've made over 7,000 decisions when I worked as a judge for 29 years. I bring to you the ability to love. I was raised in church, and one of the verses that I learned was, "Love one another as I have loved you." And I have come to believe that one of the key ways that we can change the way things function in our democracy is when we do what we do because we love. I am Dana LaMon. I am running for State Senate District 21. And if Dana LaMon and what he stands for is what you want in the person who represents you in the State Senate, then I ask, number 1, that you vote. And number 2, that you go out and tell, 1,000 other people that they should also vote. I think if we get 50,000 should get us through the primaries. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, Dana.
Hi there.
How will you help resolve the homeless problem in our communities?
I am very glad that you posed that question. As I travel around the district and beyond the district, every community faces that issue. Am I? Yeah, I should get it. Every community faces that issue. I don't care where you are. When I'm in Victorville, I'm in Apple Valley, in Santa Clarita, I'm in Lancaster. Everybody's got a concern about homelessness. I do not purport to have the answer. I know that the answer has to be multifaceted because there are different reasons that people are homeless. My experience as a judge says to me, Dana, what you need to do is sit down and talk to some experts about what are the causes and what are the possible solutions, and then talk about how we can solve it. What I can tell you is that we should be treating homelessness, this moment, we should be treating homeless as a national emergency. That's the way it should be treated. The federal government, the state government, local governments, as well as the private nonprofit institutions, the churches, everybody who's trying to do their little piece, we should bring them all together. And so I would be in favor of developing a separate division, if not a separate department within the state, to simply address homelessness. It's serious enough that we should be attacking it as though it is a wildfire.
Hey, Dana, James, you pretty much answered the question I was going to ask, because I was going to ask you about affordable housing. And it's probably the same thing.
It's part of, yes, thank you, James. It's part of that issue, is affordable housing. That's why I was saying homelessness is caused by different things. And, well, let me say this. I might get in trouble a little bit, but I've got to be always honest with you. I favor capitalism as an economic system for our country to operate by, but I think it's important that we recognize that capitalism has some byproduct that's not so good. Just like any manufacturer, anything you manufacture, for example, there's going to be some waste that's not so good. What happens in capitalism is in a free market, we let a business owner, a property owner, set the price. You get to set the price. This is a free market. Well, whatever price you set, I don't care if it's down here, it's up here, wherever price you set, there's going to be somebody whose income falls below that. When their income falls below that, they can't get your unit. So we've got to be creative enough to come up with ways that everyone has housing. That's what we have. We have to accept the fact that everyone has to have housing. In order to live a meaningful life, you've got to have a place, you got to have shelter over your head. And once we do that, we're going to have to come up with ways at how we do that. And if we accept capitalism as the market system that we want to use, then we also must accept we have to come up with some device that catches those people who are left below that minimum level. So that's what I suggest. And there are different proposals, different ideas of how you make housing affordable. I happen not to care for, you been to New York?
No.
Anybody been to New York? Yeah. I don't like New York. I don't like stacking people on top and higher. It just, I guess it's because I rely on my ears, and it's just, I'm in some instances, you got to have multiple units, obviously, because that brings down the cost. But I also believe that we've got lots of land too. You don't have to cluster people. Why put 7 million people on 25 square miles? I mean, I don't understand that either. So we do have to come up with ideas on how we make housing affordable and be smart about it. But since I'm not a developer, I can't tell you I have the answer. But I have the ability to listen to people who do have the answers and see what we can work out. One of the other issues, though, and it comes to us, each of us as individuals, because we pass laws that say you can spend money on homelessness. We do want to solve the problem. And so someone comes up with an idea. Let's build a unit here where the homeless can do X, whatever it is. The homeless can store their things. The homeless can have a place to eat. They can have a place to sleep out of the car. And so, well, not near my house. No, I don't want it near my house. Put it near James' house. And so we have to get away from that. And if we recognize, when we have a real national emergency, we seem to come together. If there's a wildfire, we run and help our neighbor. If our neighbor is struggling to get things done, we run and help them. We run and help the animals who are defenseless. But homeless, we turn our heads. And we got to get out of that. We got to say, I'm willing to sacrifice having a shelter near my house so that people don't have to live on the street. So, one of the things I wrote, somebody recently asked me a question, and I said, economic opportunity, and I believe in open markets, but economic opportunity has to come with it economic responsibility. All right, next question. I'll try to make the answer shorter.
Okay, this was just a...
Oh, you're still standing there.
Yeah. How can I resist it? Just want to throw a hardball at you.
Okay.
You're running a grassroots campaign,
yes.
And you said that's all you're going to listen to. But what about if the helpful Honda people want to support you? Are you going to listen to them?
If helpful Honda is within my district, I consider them part of the constituency, and I will accept their $4,000 contribution just like I accept yours. Mm-hmm. But they don't get any more influence than you get, or any more influence than the person who gave me nothing gets.
Okay. Thank you.
By the way, you have some contact with Helpful Honda? Okay.
So my question is regarding your number 1E,
yes.
Education.
Yes.
It seems like school shootings is an epidemic, right? Wouldn't most of us say? What are you going to do to help Sydney, Anthony, Rosario, and all of Nancy's other kids at SOAR feel a little bit more comfortable going to school every day to study as opposed to worrying, am I safe today?
We have a problem not only in the schools, but if you follow the news, lately our churches are questionable as to their safety too. I do believe that our focus has to be ensuring that education is about education and not worried about staying alive. I support, let me say it this way, I support our Constitution. And when elected and sworn in, I will swear to support the Constitution. And in our U.S. Constitution, Second Amendment gives a person a right to bear arms. But every one of our rights in the Bill of Rights has its limits. Our Constitution says I have freedom of speech, but our court has said I cannot stand in a crowded theater and yell fire. So I believe that our Second Amendment, we have to stop being afraid to put the appropriate limits to the owning of guns. And, you know, the whole purpose of the Constitution, you can read it right there. It says to maintain an organized militia. Not to own weapons that can do mass destruction in 10 seconds. And so I actually came up with this idea of a grassroots and legislative effort. I call it GLEAMS, GLEAMS, and that's grassroots and legislative effort against mass shooting. and do whatever we can to ensure that that mass shootings can't occur. I do not believe that the way you solve the problem is to put more guns in more people's hands. That just doesn't make sense to me. I have not yet, and I keep using this analogy because we know it, but I have not yet heard the fire department say, you know, we got wildfires here, let's give everybody a match. All right, is that okay, Pamela? You're good with that?
That's good. I'm good with that.
I'm certainly not in favor. I don't want our schools to start looking like prisons because we're trying to keep evil people out. That's not healthy either. But again, I represent the people. And so if the majority of the people say, Dana, this is what I think we should do, then when I go to the legislature, I'm going to argue for the majority of the people. I had to say it that way because I was at an event and I said, I want to do what the people want. And the moderator says, I want a pony. And I said, and it's a democracy, so I have to find out how many other people in the district want a pony. All right, next question.
Hi, Dana. My
Yes.
name is Leslie Boyle. And I have a question about housing, if we could piggyback back to that. I'm in real estate and I'm always concerned about housing options. And one thing I learned about the RV parks, when I divorced my husband went to live in an RV park and he found that there were lots of ex-husbands living in RV parks. He felt very much at home. And the only problem with the RV parks is that they make you leave after 90 days or 6 months or something. And I'm concerned that there should be more living options because not everyone needs a big house. Not everyone wants to be in an apartment. And I was wondering how you felt about that.
I agree with you.
Cool.
That means do I get your vote now?
Yes. You'll be my favorite Democrat.
I'm not sure if Alan will say it, but Alan and I were discussing the homelessness issue, and he said, there may be somebody out there who wants to be out there. They want to live in nature. They don't want, so maybe all they want is during a certain few times during the year, they just want to get out of the cold, or they want a place to store their things so they don't have to worry about somebody stealing them. And that's what I'm talking about. We have to think of it as, we can't look at it as this is the way I did it and so everybody should do it that way. Look at the various options. And so I agree with you, Leslie. I think that is an interesting one to look into about the limitation on the RV park.
Well, when you become senator, I will look for you and maybe we can work on something.
All right, December.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Politicians here in California, they help a lot undocumented population, maybe because they understand that they have something to do in that California is the fifth economy of most important of the world. What is your position about undocumented immigration?
I don't like the term. I don't like the term. I don't like treating people in different classes just because they came from different places. I like people are people. That's the way I look at them. And I feel, I'll give you an example. I have a friend who's a doctor and he worked in a county facility and people who were here illegally couldn't get services. I asked him, how did he feel about that? Tell me, Dr. Mead, how do you feel about it? He said, Dana, my oath, my Hippocratic oath says that I treat the injury that's in front of me. I don't ask them about their papers. I treat the condition. And that's what I believe in general. Just because someone was born on that side of the border and someone was born on this side of the border, they still should have the opportunity for a meaningful life. Now, we have immigration laws? Yes. And we have a mixed way of enforcing those immigration laws. Enforce the law as you need to, change the law as you need to, but whatever you do, treat human beings as human beings. That's the way I look at it.
Thank you.
AB 392, California Saves Lives Act. How will you ensure that the state upholds the use of deadly force when necessary? Prior to the act, police were allowed to use deadly force. But the act has indicated that you use deadly force only when necessary. So who would determine?
When it's necessary.
Right.
And, anytime in a law you put that, the law expects that it's going to be reasonable, whether you act reasonably and in the circumstances. So the very difficult thing, first of all, I do think there's a problem. Let me just say, as a background, I do think there's a problem. I'm hearing too much in the news about police shooting. I am bothered by that. But I'm not in the circumstance, so I don't know what they've gone through at the time that caused them to make that decision. But in general, so you can make laws. What I discovered is you can make laws, but how do you enforce them? How do you, for example, I was in a welfare system, and they said, we have too many welfare cheats. We have to change the law. Well, what I learned in 29 years, the changes in the law on welfare didn't get rid of welfare cheats. It just caused the welfare cheats to change how they cheated. So we have the same thing. If you have a law enforcement officer who has the propensity to shoot, you change the law, doesn't mean he's not going, or I should say, or she is not going to shoot. So that's the problem. And I think the reason that I'm running is that I want to convey, along with what we do, is a message about loving one another. Because we can make all kinds of laws about how we're supposed to treat someone, and that doesn't change behavior if that person is absent of love.
But my question to you is, my concerns are schools educating the youngsters, pupils, to teach them some kind of a trade, some kind of skills besides just computers, because not all students are computer savvy or like computers. And I know that that's part of the future, but also the future we need electricians, carpenters, plumbers, just a general labor type works. And the schools are not offering this to the students. And I'm sorry if I can't speak I lost my voice and it's just coming back. And I hope I made myself clear.
You did.
Because we have a big problem. We have a lot of young people that are bridging out of foster care, and we're seeing a lot of them as homeless. And that's because they have no education of any kind of a trade to do. They don't know what to do.
Yes, you brought up a very important issue, and one my mother would love that you brought it up, because I know when I sit on committees and we talk about preparing kids for college and offering college scholarships, she says, not everybody wants to go to college.
That's right,
So thank you for bringing it up. We should provide different avenues for the different paths that people want to go. Not every student, listen, Soar High School is a wonderful high school we have in the Antelope Valley. And it prepares students. We get students who are going to Princeton and Yale and Stanford and Harvard and UCLA and UC Irvine. But we also have students that say, I don't want to go to college. And that should be acceptable too for that moment. Not everybody wants to take the same path. And I agree with you that we should have trade schools. In fact, I'm a member of the California Optimists. The Optimist Club provides services for youth. And there are lots of Optimist clubs that give scholarships to go to college. And I talked to the California Optimist Club. I said, listen, there's nobody seems to be who's offering scholarships for people who want to go to trade schools. So yes, we do need to keep that in mind, that we need to train them for other avenues other than to get their PhD in history. They just may want to get their certificate in plumbing.
That's right. That's right.
And we need some good plumbers.
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right.
God bless you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for coming.